Anh ngồi đây đi ạ.
Vâng. Đây là 100 triệu. Chủ tịch Hùng bảo tôi mang số tiền này xuống đây giao cho cô, coi như là một chút hỗ trợ. Cô hãy nhận lấy số tiền này, chủ động cắt đứt mọi liên lạc và rời xa cậu Tuấn Anh vĩnh viễn.
Anh Linh, anh mau cất số tiền này vào trong túi rồi mang về trả cho sếp của mình đi ạ. Tôi không phải là một con người thực dụng.
After secretly sending people to monitor, investigate, and closely observe every aspect of his son's life on the remote mountain for quite some time, Tuan's father finally discovered the shocking truth that Tieu Hue was pregnant. Faced with this explosive news, the powerful man did not soften or reconsider his stance at all. On the contrary, he began to feel that the situation was becoming more serious and dangerous than ever before. The wealthy father's greatest fear was public opinion and the judgment of upper-class society. He became consumed by the thought that if this matter were exposed, if his business partners or the media ever found out, the prestigious reputation of his family would suffer severe damage. As a man who valued family honor and pride above everything else, he absolutely could not tolerate the idea of outsiders, friends, or rivals mocking him because the only son of such a respected and wealthy family had chosen to marry a poor, penniless girl from a low social background. To him, reputation and pride were priceless treasures, things he would never allow himself to sacrifice for any reason, even if it meant sacrificing his son's happiness or his own grandchild. Because of that selfishness, arrogance, and overwhelming pride, the powerful father came up with a ruthless plan to completely destroy the relationship between the young couple once and for all. Not wanting to personally appear and dirty his own hands with the matter, he coldly ordered his subordinates to deliver a suitcase containing an enormous amount of money, $200,000, directly to Tieu Hue's small wooden house. Along with the money came a cruel demand. Tieu Hue had to immediately abort the baby and disappear from Tuan's life forever. But the wealthy father's manipulation did not stop there. Through his subordinates, he also revealed the calculating mindset of a man who believed money could control everything. They generously promised Tieu Hue that if she obediently agreed, signed the papers to give up the child, and accepted leaving Tuan forever, he would willingly pay her an additional $300,000. In his eyes, a total of $500,000 was an unimaginable fortune for a poor girl like her, enough money to buy a comfortable home in the city below, secure a luxurious future, and completely change her life without needing to cling to his son and continue suffering hardship. The servant speaking on behalf of Tuan's ruthless and powerful father then began delivering a series of manipulative threats, each word striking directly at the fragile spirit of the young woman. With a cold and commanding tone, they stared straight into Tieu Hue's eyes and said bitterly, "If you truly love Mr. Tuan, then you should know your place and follow the chairman's request." They cruelly explained that her stubborn and selfish love was not bringing happiness to Tuan at all. Instead, it was slowly destroying his bright future with her own hands. If she continued clinging to him, refused to leave, and insisted on giving birth to the baby, then Tuan would undoubtedly be abandoned by the entire wealthy family. He would lose his inheritance, lose his status, and eventually become poor and miserable, living a life of hardship just like hers. As if that were not enough, one of the men stepped forward and asked her in an especially vicious tone, "Can you really bear to watch your own child be born into poverty and suffering, when neither the father nor the mother has enough financial ability to provide the child with a decent life?" That question struck Tieu Hue like a bolt of lightning, completely shattering the last emotional defenses inside her heart. Her chest tightened painfully until she could barely breathe. She froze in place, instinctively wrapping both arms around her stomach as tears poured endlessly down her face in humiliation and despair. For the first time, She was forced to confront the cruel reality before her and think about all the hardships they had endured recently. Ever since Tuan had been completely cut off from his family's financial support and stripped of his wealthy heir status, the man who had grown up surrounded by luxury had been forced to cast aside his pride and return to grueling manual labor in the remote mountains, working endlessly just to earn enough money for them to survive day by day. Every time she saw the rough calluses forming on his hands, every drop of sweat rolling down his forehead when he returned home late at night exhausted from work, her heart ached unbearably. And now, with the baby on the way, diapers, milk, medical expenses, nutrition, and countless future responsibilities would become an enormous financial burden pressing heavily onto his shoulders. When Tieu Hue imagined her innocent child growing up in poverty, living inside a leaking wooden house, unable to receive a proper education, and being looked down upon by society just like its unfortunate mother, her heart felt as though it had shattered into countless pieces. A painful question began tormenting her mind over and over again. If I selfishly keep him by my side and force my child to grow up in such terrible poverty, do I still deserve to call myself a mother? Seeing the hesitation and emotional collapse reflected in Tieu Hue's tear-filled eyes, the servant curled his lips into a satisfied smirk. He knew that his cruel words had achieved their purpose perfectly, planting a deep sense of inferiority and class shame inside the heart of the helpless young woman. Faced with the $200,000 suitcase placed right before her eyes and the promise of another $300,000 that could completely change her life, Tieu Hue felt her chest tighten painfully, her breathing growing heavier from humiliation and bitterness. Even though her current situation was incredibly difficult and money was desperately needed to survive, her pride and dignity would never allow her to surrender. She clearly understood that as time passed and the baby inside her continued to grow, her belly would become larger day by day, making it far more difficult for her to travel, move around, or carry baskets of vegetables down to the market to sell. On top of that, the burden of pregnancy nutrition, medical checkups, supplements, medicine, and the countless expenses required to raise a child after birth would only continue growing heavier on the shoulders of the young couple. But even so, Tieu Hue would rather endure poverty and hardship than sell her dignity for dirty money. She refused to turn the sacred child created from the love between her and Tuan into a commodity to be bought, measured, and traded with wealth. At the peak of that painful emotional struggle, after wiping away the tears streaming down her face, Tieu Hue lifted her head and stared directly at the servants with an icy determination they had never seen before. With a trembling voice filled with pain yet unbelievably firm, she made a heartbreaking decision, one that would completely change both her destiny and the destiny of the man she loved most. Tieu Hue declared that she was willing to leave Tuan on. She would let him go and quietly disappear from his life exactly as his father wished. She chose to sacrifice her own happiness and return to a lonely existence so that Tuan could go back to the luxurious upper-class world he belonged to, without being abandoned by his family or forced to continue suffering through unemployment and exhausting labor in the mountains because of her. However, when it came to the cruel demand that she abort her child, Tieu Hue rejected it immediately with fierce determination. To her, the innocent baby growing inside her had done nothing wrong. The child was the pure result of sincere love and the only remaining reason she still had to keep living. Even if she had to kneel and beg for food, even if countless dangers and storms awaited her ahead, she would never agree to destroy the tiny life inside her womb. Tieu Hue firmly declared to the men standing before her. She would not accept a single dollar from the wealthy family, and she would never allow anyone in this world to know about the existence of her child. How she would give birth, raise, and educate the baby from now on would be her responsibility alone. She would shoulder everything by herself without accepting charity, pity, or assistance from Tuan's wealthy father. She wanted to protect her child from the cruel class discrimination and prejudice of the upper-class world with nothing but her independence and a mother's unconditional love. After saying those final words, she turned around and coldly walked away. The moment the door closed and she was finally alone in the silent room, Tieu Hue collapsed onto the floor. She wrapped both arms tightly around her stomach and burst into uncontrollable sobs of agony. Her heart felt as though it were being crushed and torn apart, because deep down she knew that her short-lived days of happiness beside Tuan were about to come to an end, and ahead of her awaited another lonely and painful escape into darkness for both her and her unborn child. Deep within her heart, Tieu Hue loved Tuan more than anything else in this world. Her love for him was so immense that she was willing to sacrifice even her own life and dignity for his sake. And precisely because she loved him so deeply, she could not selfishly stand by and watch the man she loved exhaust himself day after day, struggling through 3 or 4 difficult jobs at once in the town below. She could not bear to see the young master who had once been born with a silver spoon, raised in luxury and comfort, now forced to endure harsh sunlight and pouring rain, working himself to the point of collapse just to earn enough money for pregnancy expenses and future baby supplies for both mother and child. The inferiority and shame she carried from her poor background and endless debts once again transformed into an invisible pressure crushing down on her soul, forcing her toward a painful decision, letting go of him in order to free his life from the darkness she believed she had dragged him into. But leaving Tuan also meant accepting another cruel reality. She would once again return to a lonely life. Alone, carrying the tiny life growing inside her, she would step into another desperate escape without knowing where the road would end. There would no longer be his strong shoulder beside her when sickness or hardship arrived. No more loving eyes warming her through the cold mountain nights. Amidst the chaos of her thoughts and the endless tears falling down her cheeks, Tieu Hue began tormenting herself with one heartbreaking question. Should she say goodbye and honestly face Tuan one last time before truly leaving, or not? If she chose to tell him the cruel truth, she knew very well that Tuan's loyal and stubborn nature would never allow her and the baby to leave. He would undoubtedly hold tightly onto her hand and recklessly choose to fight every storm beside her. Even worse, if Tuan discovered that his own father had cruelly used money, power, and family honor to humiliate and corner Tieu Hue into despair, he would certainly explode with rage. That fury would push him into an even more violent conflict with his family. But if she chose to quietly disappear into the darkness without saying a single word of farewell, Tieu Hue also knew she would leave behind a fatal wound inside Tuan's heart. Her sudden disappearance would destroy him emotionally. The man she loved would desperately search for her everywhere, living endlessly in guilt and torment, believing he had failed to protect the woman he loved most. No matter which path she chose, the pain left behind would still be unbearably cruel. Inside the silent wooden house, the setting sun slowly dyed the entire mountainside crimson like blood. Tieu Hue stood unsteadily beside the window, her trembling hand gently caressing her stomach. The love between the two of them, a pure and resilient love that had survived countless storms, now once again stood on the edge of complete destruction because of the enormous divide between wealth and poverty, and the merciless prejudice of a powerful upper-class family. Would the young woman truly choose to disappear in silence, leaving Tuan behind in endless despair? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next dramatic chapter of their heartbreaking story.
Dưới mái hiên đơn sơ của căn nhà gỗ nằm ép mình dưới bên sườn núi, Tieu Hue bắt đầu một ngày mới bằng tiếng chim rừng lành lót và mùi thơm dịu nhẹ của sương sớm. Cuộc sống của cô và Tuấn Anh cứ thế trôi qua trong một sự giản dị đến thuần khiết. nơi mỗi khoảnh khắc đều trở nên quý giá. Sau những giông bão kinh hoàng mà cô đã trải qua, những buổi sáng sớm khi mặt trời còn chưa kịp nhô cao khỏi dãy núi phía đông, hai người đã cùng nhau quây quần bên bếp lửa bập bùng để thưởng thức bữa sáng ấm áp. Đó không phải là những món cao lương mỹ vị, chỉ là bát cháo trắng nóng hổi hay vài củ khoai nướng thơm lừng. Nhưng đối với Tieu Hue, nó chứa đựng hơi ấm của sự tôn trọng và tình người mà cô hằng khao khát. Trong căn bếp nhỏ hẹp ấy, những câu chuyện nhẹ nhàng được trao đổi, không có sự tra hỏi về quá khứ, chỉ có những lời hỏi han ân cần về sức khỏe hay những dự định cho công việc trong ngày. Khi sương mù bắt đầu tan, nhường chỗ cho những tia nắng vàng xuyên qua kẽ lá, Tieu Hue và Tuấn Anh lại cùng nhau ra mảnh vườn xanh mướt để thu hoạch rau củ,